Welcome back. It's been a while between videos and I thought I'd just do a quick update on an engine that I'm working on right now, which is a 3.2 short stroke. This is it. You don't have to look at me anymore. This was an engine that's supplied by a lovely fellow down in New South Wales, and he bought a car in, I believe, many pieces, and he bought the engine completely disassembled. So when he got it, there was nothing put together. The only thing that was put together were the heads. The heads had been rebuilt, but again, an unknown quantity. So yeah, I've had everything gone through again. So I'll give you a quick update. What we've done is I've sized the case, so main bearing clearances are perfect, and we're using the original crankshaft, which is a 70.4mm stroke crankshaft from a 3 litre SC. We've upgraded the cylinders to go to a set of 3.2 barrels, which have been bored and plated, and obviously got some custom base gaskets in there as well. So we've gone to 98mm, so that's what gives us a 3.2 litre capacity, up from the 3 litres, and that's why they call it a short stroke, because it's now bigger bore, but the stroke stayed the same. And the heads, I've had the heads rebuilt again. We've put some new valve springs in, and the heads have been chamfered to allow for the larger 98mm diameter pistons. What else have we done? Obviously everything else is brand new: chains, guides, main bearings, ARP rod bolts. Rods have been rebushed and resized, and we've got some brand new Carrillo pistons in there. So one of the things that people tend to ask me is what compression ratio, and look, I think here in Australia we do have some pretty good fuel, and I know over in North America, where most of my viewers are, you guys tend to have questionable fuel sometimes. So over here we can run higher compression. So the off-the-shelf options for the Carrillo pistons for the 3 litre 98mm is you can either choose a 9.5 to 1 compression ratio, or you can choose a 10.5 to 1 compression ratio. Now if you use 10.5 to 1, look, it all comes down to how much volume you've got in your heads. Like if they've been shaved a few times and then your dome volume is a little bit smaller, then you're going to have higher compression. You can also adjust your compression by changing the thickness of your base gaskets by changing your deck height, but really you want your deck height to be as close to 1mm as possible. With a street engine that's still going to be running the original CIS, and it's still going to be running its normal distributor and CDI ignition, we're not going to have knock sensors, we're not going to have programmable EFI, so we're much better off erring on the side of caution and running the 9.5 compression ratio. I mean, I'd happily run 10 or 10.2, but if I got 10.5 pistons, we'd have to modify the pistons to lower the compression. Now, the thing that you've got to remember is, I know that people that haven't built these engines before and haven't had too much to do with them will say, well, my engine's a high compression, it's a 9.8 to 1 compression, and Porsche manufactured them as 9.8 to 1. Well, yeah, that's true, that's how they were advertised, but what we've got to remember, and what a lot of people forget, is that the compression ratio that Porsche state, it actually works off them assuming that you've got a 0 deck height. So if you do your compression calculation ratio online and you type in a 0 deck height, and you actually measure the volume of your combustion chamber and your factory Marley pistons, the dome volume of the pistons, it actually works out that they'll get to that 9.8 to 1 compression ratio assuming a 0 deck height. But of course in the real world we never run a 0 deck height. We always run, as I say, close to 1mm as possible. Now, if you read the Wayne Dempsey book, he sort of says to run somewhere around 1.5mm, and it does actually reduce your compression ratio a little bit. So I'll let you go and check out online compression ratio calculators, and if you work out the difference between a 0 deck height and a 1mm deck height, that reduces your compression ratio on this engine by 1 full compression point. So realistically, if Porsche is saying it's a 9.8 to 1 compression ratio, in reality, with a 1mm deck height, if you're lucky, it actually works out to be more like 8.8 to 1 compression ratio. Now, with these custom-made, well, they're not custom, they're off the shelf, but they're Carrillo pistons, given the volume that they've made them to, they make them to suit a nominal combustion chamber volume of 90 cc's, because that's what Porsche made them to, and they also make them to a nominal deck height of 1 millimetre. And so when they say 9.5 to 1, they mean a real world 9.5 to 1. Now, as it works out, I've checked the combustion chamber volume, I've cc'd the heads, and I've calculated my deck height with exactly what deck height I've got there. And my true compression ratio actually works out to be 9.6-ish to 1. And given that you can actually gain more power with ignition, like advancing the timing, than you can with increasing your compression ratio another half a point, I think I'd much rather run on the side of caution. And I'm certain that this client, with his custom camshafts and the bumping compression, I'm certain that also with the bumping capacity, he's going to be really, really happy with the performance of this engine. So it's going to be way, way, way more than stock. It will be much revvier, much happier, and have a lot more punch. I've had a few people sort of ask me, what do you do to the case? Well, with this case, I don't know how long the engine has been apart. I do know it wasn't stored very well because the case halves had dirt and grass and things in them. I mean, not a lot, just a little bit. And when I tested the piston squirters, one of them was good, 3 of them were iffy, 2 of them were completely blocked. And I always try to free up piston squirters because they're not cheap, but they just wouldn't free up. So I've had the tank, I've had the case ultrasonically cleaned, and I've replaced all 6 piston squirters, obviously knocked out the plugs from the case and replaced them so I can make sure that everything gets completely cleaned out. So I'm confident that the case is nice and clean now. What else have I done? Vapor blasting and camshaft towers. Now, I know I never vapor blast these cases. I never do it because there are so many intricate little journals inside there, where little crevices and sharp corners where media can get trapped. Obviously, I get things like the cylinders, and obviously the heads are vapor blasted when they get rebuilt. But things like camshaft towers and chain boxes, like, look, let's be honest, they look gorgeous. Like, look at that. That's a really, really nice finish. When these arrived to me, and I'll try to put some pictures in there if I can remember, of how everything was supplied to me. But yeah, they were sort of clean, but somebody had sprayed them with some sort of a protectant, but it was blue. It looked like engineer's blue, but it wasn't. It sort of wiped away. So I've had to have everything re-vapor blasted, and he's done a much, much, much better job. And I use him for all of my vapor blasting. But one of the things that I always do, and he'll tell you that, it's up to you. He can vapor blast stuff for you, but it's up to you to do the final prep. If you look at these castings, like, there's so many little areas where blast media can get trapped, threads, little holes. I always pull the oil splash tubes out of the camshaft towers and make sure that they're completely clean. And I also ultrasonic clean these probably 10 times, and you'll be surprised. Like, you might hit these with a pressure cleaner and a hose, and you might dunk them and you think you've got all the media out, but I guarantee you that if you go to have these ultrasonic cleaned, you will still see media. So I run them through again and again and again and again until there's absolutely nothing in the bottom of the tank. Then and only then am I 100% happy that these are safe to go back in the engine and to be reused. I've obviously pulled the splash tube plugs out because you have to get these out, and I've replaced the Welsh plugs. One of them, look, I know these are not under a lot of pressure. However, I have come across a car in the past where these did come loose, and he had a pretty catastrophic oil leak and didn't know where it was coming from. And I've had to replace them in the car, which isn't fun. So I do knock the Welsh plugs out and replace them with new ones and seal them up, and I'll put a bead of JB Weld around there as well. Apart from that, chain boxes, again, look beautiful, like jewellery, but again, ultrasonic cleaned to make sure that they're perfect. Okay, so I'm at the point now where I'm ready to almost ready to mount my camshaft towers. The heads are on, they're not torqued down to factory spec. So what I'll do is I'll back them off, mount my camshaft towers and my oil return tubes. You don't want to forget those because that's very painful. And yeah, then I'll fit those later on today. And then we're sort of getting on the final stretch to get everything ready to go. Another one of the things that I spend a lot of time on with these engines is making sure that everything's perfectly flat and level. If you don't have your heads completely level, look, you can probably have a small variance in there with your camshaft towers, but look, I always believe that if you can have everything as flat and if you aim for absolute perfection as much as you can, then even if it ends up being a little bit out, then you sort of minimised any sort of losses there. But there is no gap. All these heads on both sides are absolutely dead flat. You can shine a torch through there, no light gets through. And yeah, I'm very happy with that. So I expect that when I fit these camshaft towers, I expect my camshafts to rotate nice and freely. And just like that, the right-hand side is assembled and torqued to spec. So I've installed the splash tube. Got to pay attention to the orientation to make sure that it lines up with the oil supply holes here, and also that the single hole here is pointing to the top, and then there's the other two holes that point to the exhaust rockers. Everything's torqued to spec, camshaft is in, and as you can see, turns nice and freely. Lovely. Look at that, so freely it's even falling out because my engine's on a bit of a slant. So anyway, that's the good news, and I guess now I'll just go ahead and assemble the left-hand side. And just like that, it is all done. So the left-hand side was done, exactly the same as the right. Everything torqued to spec, fitting in the left-hand camshaft. As you can see, rotates nice and freely. All looks nice and shiny. Now it's time to put some chain boxes on, I guess. Don't forget to like and subscribe.